If timber's hitting the ground, you bet two brothers are around.
Hello everybody, and welcome back to our channel, Two Brothers Outdoors. We're excited to bring you another segment on John, the Old World Craftsman. This is John and his loving wife, Joan. And unfortunately, I screwed Joan's name up on the last video and I called her Alexandria, and I apologize for that. I'm terrible with names. Now, John, of course, is the craftsman, and he does things the old school way, the way they did things back in the colonial days, basically, using a few modern tools to speed things up, but not many. And Joan does all the videotaping and all the computer work and all the hard work of trying to get these videos to us. So both of them are working very hard to produce these videos, and I hope you enjoy them as much as we do. These videos have gone through several formats, getting them to us and putting them on our video editor. So we've lost some of the volume loudness, so you may have to turn your volume up to hear what John has to say. Now, I'd like to mention at this point that everything John builds is handmade and one of a kind. And John can build that special rocking chair or chair for your child, or for your mother, or for your father, adult chairs, children's chairs, spoons, rolling pins. He makes all kinds of stuff. So at the end of this video, I'm going to have John's business card, and you'll be able to look at the business card and be able to contact John to build a special keepsake something for somebody special in your family. Now, on the last video, we left you with John showing us how he makes boards and spindles out of logs without using a sawmill like we do. All right, so without further ado, let's catch up with John and the newest video. He's going to show you how he makes and bends wood the old-fashioned way.
Next phase of the operation that I'm working on. In the previous video, we were splitting the log to get pieces of wood out to turn on a lathe to make legs and spindles for a stool. The next phase is to make a back crust or support for the lower part of your back on the chair. So we're going to end up eventually, after bending, steaming and bending, with a piece of wood that looks like this. It's bent. Today I'm going to end up, or this session, I'm going to end up with a piece of wood that looks similar to this. So the first step is going to be I cut off the end of the piece of wood that I have, and if you notice, this is the piece that I cut off. It has a yellowish color to it. That's latex paint on there that Rick and Tim put on the end of their logs to help slow down the drying process of the end grain. Sometimes the end grain, well, most often the end grain dries faster than the long grain, creating a crack, or commonly called checks. So I cut that off, and I used a bow saw, which has very large teeth, not a carpenter's type of saw, but a bow saw, and cut to length this piece of wood. First phase is going to be to take the bark off this piece of wood. So I've talked about taking the bark off. Actually, what I'm doing beyond taking the bark off is I want to make this a parallel line, and I want to work those long fibers. So as I come with a draw knife, I'm doing two things at the same time. I'm looking for a pattern, a grain pattern. If I have something that looks like boxes here, and then I come down here and I have circles down here, that's telling me I'm way off. I need to have these lines be very similar. And what I'm basically going to do is to get this to be nice and smooth with the long grain, and then I'm going to work on the side and make this side 90-degree angle to this side. So I switch over, and ultimately we're going to end up with a piece of wood that has 6 sides that are going to be 90 degrees to the adjacent side. So my next step is with the draw knife, smoothing the wood out. Okay, so I think I'm at 90 degrees. Take my square, check this out, and I'm there. So this side is 90 degrees to this side. And those of you that know a little bit about woodworking fundamental principle here, you would probably be using some type of machine, a joiner, and or with a combination of bench saw to get that angle. Okay, so now I'm going for my width. I want to be parallel this side to this side. And I know those two angles are correct. So I take my marking gauge and I'm moving down here. And theoretically, if I stay parallel to this side and I make this side parallel to it, I will be working a long grain the entire length of my board. And I use the pencil there just to show you, so that it'll show up as to exactly what I did here, that this is going to be parallel. So now I take my draw knife again, and the next step is to get the final dimension and make sure that all 6 sides are parallel or 90 degrees to each other. So I'm going to use a chalk line to get my straight line. I've measured, actually put the line here earlier. I measured the width of the piece that I want, final width. I'm going to put my chalk line on. Snap it. So I'm at my final width, and what I will do is to use my draw knife to take off all that excess wood down to the chalk line, and that will give me my final dimension. And I'll continue to do that, to work this out to this final piece that now will be prepared to be placed in the steam box, and we'll go through the process of steaming and bending this piece of wood. The last segment I talked about 6 sides being perpendicular to each other, 90-degree angles. I didn't explain myself. After we get the 4 sides to be 90 degrees, then I take a square and make my line on the end and on this end, and so that's how we end up with the 6 sides, the 2 ends, sides, top and bottom. And then I use a simple pull saw to make my cuts here, and we're ready to steam. Our setup here. First of all, in order to bend, you need heat and moisture. So we're using a wallpaper remover as our heat source. Some people would call it a boiler. This would be a steam box. So the steam is coming in here, and you may be able to see the steam coming up on the side. Not very easy to see, but it's boiling very vigorously. I need to keep this size piece of wood, the one that we did in the last segment, in the box with the steam for between 45 minutes and an hour. And this is ash that we're using. I use local woods, also oak. I like very much to bend. And around here, hickory is also a popular wood source for bending. And we're just about ready to open things up and get our piece out. But I want to explain one more thing before we pull the piece out. We're going to use it to bend. This is called a press. It's still steam bending, but there are two parts, and the piece will fit in here. And with pipe clamps, I'll tighten that up so that we get the bend that we're looking for. Obviously, the steam is very hot. And as you can see, we got finally to the end here. This is supposed to be a simple bend in comparison to some of the other bends that we do. But the people that do this on a more regular basis than I do it say that there's more artistic work involved than it is science. And I tend to agree. There's a feel, the amount of time you have, and it's not laid out scientifically. Anyway, the piece that we bent would stay in here for approximately 2 weeks or longer. Okay, this is the bend that we worked on, that we just steamed. This is on a bar stool. Not a terribly complicated bend, but it is a tight bend. On this rocking chair, we get into a double bend. The spindles are bent here as well as here. This is a more complicated bend on this rocking chair. This is a contemporary Windsor rocking chair. There's a bend in the spindle up here as well as a bend here. and then that's one part, and of course the headrest, head crest has a bend in it. This is the most, this is the most complicated bend that I do. This is a continuous armchair. This is one piece of wood, oak in this particular case, goes all the way around here. So we have a bend here, a bend here, and a bend here. Every Windsor chair that I make, there is a steam bent part on it, and some of them have more than one bend. And that concludes our episode with bending.
Okay guys, here's the business card. Don't be afraid to contact John to build something for you. And just drop him an email if you want and tell him you enjoy his videos. Thanks for watching. Hit that subscribe button. We'll see you on the next one.